On the 15th of November 1966, two couples were driving together on State Route 62 in West Virginia when they saw a terrifying 7-foot-tall creature with glowing red eyes. They fled, but although they were reaching speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, this creature was able to easily keep up with them, gliding through the night air on leathery wings. Join us on Aliens Explored as we delve into the mystery of the Mothman.
Aliens Explored is a weekly podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Aliens Explored, your weekly favourite podcast where we look at extraterrestrials, sub-aqua aliens, and all manner of aliens that we explore. I don't know, I have no idea where I was going with that. But one thing I do know for certain is that I am one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm pretty sure I'm your other host, Neil Kelly.
How are you doing, Neil?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I mean, yeah, we always try and make the intro a little bit different each time, don't we? But we don't write them in
we
advance.
don't really, because we're just kind of winging it, aren't we? We're just off the hoof.
And here we are, 158 episodes. Well, it's more than that when you include the specials as well. It's difficult to get it different every single time.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just have one stock intro.
Or maybe we should take a bit more care rather than, sorry, whose turn is it to do it? Okay, we'll just off you go then. Hello, listeners. My name is Neil Kelly.
We like to be ad hoc and unscripted, off the chain. Well, interesting topic, this one today, looking at a potentially extraterrestrial being. Mothman. Had you... I asked this a lot of you with these various topics, Neil. Had you heard of Mothman before?
I was aware of the Richard Gere movie from about 20 odd years ago.
The Mothman Prophecies.
Yeah. Was that the same Mothman?
That's the same Mothman.
The Mothman wasn't a
Mothman.
DC Comics or a Marvel Comics villain or hero, was he? There wasn't a Mothman?
Not that I'm aware of. Nope, there's only one Mothman. Well, no, there might be several Mothmen, but there's only one being known as Mothman.
And he hangs out in a place called Point Pleasant in West Virginia. Or that's where he's seen, and that's where they've taken him to their hearts and hearths, and they celebrate him. They have all kinds of it's become a tourist draw, hasn't it? Ever since the Mothman was sighted. When was it? Back in the 1966.
November the 15th. Was it 16th?
November the 15th. I've got Roger and Linda Scarberry and Stephen Mary Mallet were driving together on State Route 62 near the abandoned National Guard Armory building and power plant when they saw a menacing figure standing 6 to 7 feet tall. In the highlights, giant eyes shone bright red. Panic set in. Roger, the car's driver, sped away toward town. The creature followed, flying after them, easily keeping pace, even though they got up to about 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. A grey being, like you say, with these large red eyes. A winged figure. No, you're absolutely right. In Point Pleasant, there's a statue.
Yeah. And
Mothman.
shops and a Mothman museum. You know, you can.
Yeah.
I saw a sign for Mothman pancakes.
It's a big old thing there. But I do have to correct you on one that you say that's where he resides. Well, there have been Mothman sightings or sightings of a similar figure all over the world.
Wow, he gets around.
It gets around, it seems. So, this winged humanoid, large being. Yeah, there's sort of similar sightings from a lot of different cultures, a lot of different places, all completely unconnected, and yeah.
Well, he's one of these creatures. It's something. It's officially called a cryptid, CRYPTID, and these are creatures whose existence is unsubstantiated. Plenty of people have claimed to see them. So, along with Mothman, you're talking about creatures like Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Wild Man of Borneo, the Loch Ness Monster, various
werewolves, vampires,
the Surrey Puma, the big cats on Dartmoor, that sort of thing. So some of them not even necessarily paranormal. Hound of the
No, that one's made up. Oh, my nose made up. Cryptids is a really broad term that. I suppose you could include extraterrestrials as cryptids.
I suppose, yeah. They're a prime candidate, aren't they?
Yeah,
You've seen
unsubstantiated creatures.
Yeah.
So we do have eyewitness testimony, and it's interesting. So when you get something like Mothman, and just to be clear, we're talking about Mothman here because it is theorized that Mothman, well, in fact, a lot of cryptids, it is theorized are extraterrestrial creatures that have visited. Really quite interesting how we are very dismissive of eyewitness testimony when it comes to extraterrestrial accounts, UFO accounts. You know, it's like, but we only have somebody's word to take for it. And yet, when we talk about biblical events, Mary getting visited by the angel Gabriel to tell her she's up the duff. Turning water into wine.
I did it while you were asleep.
Lazarus
some people
rising, all this kind of thing. People, that's just eyewitness testimony.
Well,
and yet people are ready to, billions of people around the world will accept this completely on faith. But you get eyewitness testimony of someone perfectly credible who says, yes, I saw a craft that I can't identify in the sky. It's like, but you didn't take a photo.
Well, I've always thought that about, I don't want to be disrespectful to our Christian listeners. I'm sure there are a few, but, you believe in the virgin birth. If you encountered a pregnant teenager and she told you, no, I'm still a virgin, would you believe her? You probably wouldn't, because all this stuff's in the Bible. The miracles don't happen outside the Bible. So, and even if you say, okay, I can say, well, I do accept it, I believe you, but at the end of the day, all I've got is your testimony. There's nothing else to substantiate your claim, which I'm prepared to believe, but if I was to pass on your story, I would have to advise that I don't have any evidence. All I have is your testimony.
Yeah. So, and that's where we are with Mothman, essentially, is it wasn't just the one couple as well. So ever since that first sighting in Point Pleasant back in 1966, there have been in that area over 100 reported sightings, which is a lot. That is a lot, and you when you look at the people who claim to have seen Mothman, we're talking about people who are still traumatized to this day by the event.
By that particular event, one of the four people in the car.
No, but by them, by whoever of these, 100 odd people, they remain traumatized by their sighting.
Okay.
And that's there's a that suggests that they believe very much what they're saying. Traumas are really, you can't fake trauma. So if you are traumatized by a thing, then it is real for you. It's not to say it is real, but it's real for the individual who has suffered the trauma. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting one.
But isn't seeing otherworldly beings really just part of the human... Well, seeing otherworldly beings and then being not believed by the majority of people who have never seen an otherworldly being, that's part of the human experience, isn't it? It goes back to time immemorial with witches, hobgoblins, fairies...
Absolutely,
leprechauns,
it's not an uncommon thing. And the not being believed by people does actively prevent people from coming forward and saying when they have seen things. So we've got over 100 reported sightings of Mothman in the West Virginia area. I bet there are far more than that who've actually seen something. I bet the actual number of sightings is way higher. But people are scared to be ridiculed.
No one's been hurt by this thing, have they? No one's been...
Nope. It's never attacked anyone. But I suppose, having bright red eyes and being large and looming and, having these big wings, that would be a pretty scary... That would be a terrifying experience, just seeing it. But no, there is nothing to say that Mothman is malevolent or anything like that in anybody's...
Oh, well, there was the day before it chased the couple's car down the road. It's possible he made a stop at Newell Partridge's home in Salem, West Virginia. John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, tells that they had a German shepherd named Bandit who went charging off into the woods because he saw these glowing red circles, which they suppose later were probably Mothman's eyes, and no trace was found of the dog. They found They found its paw prints going in circles and then just vanishing. But, if you've got a large bird-like creature and carry off a dog, I suppose that's what it was.
I'm still going to question the malevolence on that, because if the dog's attacking you, then self-defense is the thing. Self-defense does not imply malevolence. And it's interesting you use the word...
It does, doesn't it? It does, really, doesn't it? I mean, you've got these massive wings. You see this dog coming for you. You think, well, yeah, I can easily just flap my wings and fly up out of its reach. No problem. But no, I'll stay here on the ground and kill it. There's a choice, isn't it?
Who says the dog was killed?
Yeah, or I'll that's a nice dog. I'll have that.
There was a thing. Is it if you found a mouse in your home, the last thing you should do is just take it out your back door and just release it into your garden, because it'll come straight back in your home. If you take it 10 miles up the road and release it, it won't find its way back. Now, that's not harmful. It's not, it's a humane way of preventing mice from coming back into your house.
But this dog was never seen again anywhere, was it? Or...
Yeah. Well, if it was dropped off 20 miles away,
it
wouldn't have been. I'm theorising. Yeah. I'm just saying there's no evidence of malevolence. And it's interesting you used the word when you were talking about the group in the car. You said it chased them. It might just have been curious.
Yeah.
It's nothing to say it chased them. That implies an intent. But there's no evidence of foul intent.
It didn't do anything to them. Now, isn't it also seen sometimes as a harbinger of doom? There was a bridge that collapsed, the Silver Bridge, in December 1967. Now, a lot of people said there was no alleged sighting just before the collapse, but there were those who said that the Mothman was a sinister harbinger. You know, when you see the Mothman, you know something bad's going to happen.
Yeah. Then, was it comets were seen as harbingers of doom? You know, if you see a comet in the sky, that means some calamities going to befall. And you know what? Bad things happen randomly enough in life that you can associate anything. I've seen ducks on the pond, so, you know, and then something bad happened 3 days later, so ducks are a harbinger of doom. It's I think it's, but it's easy to ascribe an unknown quantity, particularly something with such a scary visage to it, such a frightening element, to associate it with bad things happening. However, it did lead to bad things happening for some people who saw Mothman, because it's led to quite a number, in fact, quite a lot of Men in Black visits.
Right.
And this is a reason why a lot of people have associated Mothman as being some extraterrestrial being or creature, because of course the Men in Black are associated with UFOs, and you know, somebody saw UFO, so they get visited by the Men in Black.
Who says you didn't see nothing, right?
Yep, basically. Well, yeah, a lot of people, and indeed the guy, Richard, whose surname I've forgotten, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies, he had visits from the Men in Black, who told him not to write his book. And he did anyway. Not Richard Gere. He was in the movie.
It was a guy called... what was his name? John Keel.
John Keel.
Yeah.
There we go. Right, yes. So, he was visited by Men in Black.
Now, certainly
off from writing his book. I mean, he wrote it anyway and nothing happened, so... You know.
But certainly Point Pleasant in West Virginia have done very well out of it. I mean, they've got their museum, they've got their... they get thousands of visitors a year.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a tourist attraction.
It's a tourist attraction, yeah. It's
but you also, wouldn't you? If you're famous for a thing like that, famous for a mystery, you're going to capitalise on it. That doesn't delegitimise it, in my view.
No.
It doesn't lend it any extra credence, but it doesn't... Yeah, it doesn't...
well, it just shows that, whether it's true or not, they've certainly done all right out of it.
Yeah. And with the way in which, like I say, the people who saw it are so traumatised by it, I don't think this is a case of people making it up in order for the town to benefit. It's the sort of thing that does get suggested, so, it's worth considering, but... I think we can I think we can rule that one out.
I mean, various academics have looked at it. There's a Kim Stryker who teaches folklore at George Mason University. Says that interest in the supernatural tends to increase during times of political and societal upheaval. That people look for enchantment, and stories like that Mothman that distract them from the day-to-day shit they're dealing with are very welcome.
That's really interesting, given the rise in recent years. Because obviously we're in a time of trouble at the moment, globally speaking, and it's certainly tumultuous, to say the least. And there has been a massive rise in UFOs kind of taking centre stage in the media and, and in Congress even, being taken far more seriously, being properly debated. So that's really interesting. That's an interesting...
But is that what would have happened in medieval times, for instance, when there's a plague or something, or a war, that suddenly there's witches everywhere, or fairies are doing their dastardly deeds? Or
well, the supernatural was often blamed for things like plagues, wasn't it?
Well, people were burned as witches for when things went wrong. But rather than but I'm thinking more in terms of there's bad stuff happening, and people suddenly there's all this supernatural stuff around. That's not blamed for all the upheavals, but it distracts people from it.
Well, we have this kind of psychological thing as human beings where we can't abide the unknown, where everything has to have a rational explanation, and it comes back to the caveman element, where the unknown will kill you. If you're, it's one of the reasons why we're inherently, individuals may be exceptional, but inherently human beings are scared of the dark, is because it's in the dark that we are at our most vulnerable. So fear of the dark is perfectly rational for a caveman. And we're barely evolved beyond cavemen.
Well, when you're swimming in the sea and you suddenly feel something around your feet, and you're reminded then, here I'm no longer top of the food chain. There's all sorts of things out here that might turn up. And
absolutely. Well, it's the unknown. Like, what's that thing that just brushed against me? I don't know what it is. It's the unknown, and that absolutely inspires terror. So the importance to turn the unknown into the known, whether it's accurate or not, is irrelevant. But to say you think you have an explanation is really important for people. I think it's one of the reasons why so many people become sort of decriers and some people really vehemently against UFOs, and they get quite angry. Like you say, I saw this flying saucer. I saw something, or you claim I was abducted. People will get angry and violent angry about that. It's. But doesn't it also? I think it's born out of that fear.
Does it also cut the other way that someone has an experience which they're unable to explain? So they try and come up with an explanation for it. So, it must be beings from another world, or it must be... I mean, in times gone by, people who see a UFO now, 100 years ago, or maybe even now still, they will say, it was a saint coming down, or it was the second coming, or whatever. They will find a category for it, and they will... Sometimes, if what they're seeing is so otherworldly that their mind can hardly cope with it, that their minds will shape it into something that's recognisable. It'll shape it into a fairy or an alien grey, or you've seen something that you just don't know what to do with it mentally. But they say for a lot of people, you can't just say, well, I saw this, I had this weird experience, I've no idea what it was, they will try and categorize it in by making some reference to paranormal phenomena that they've heard of before.
It's interesting you should say that. I was hearing quite recently about... so we know that you quite often get UFOs around disaster sites. You know, if there's, a tsunami or a volcanic eruption or something like that, you quite often get a lot of the orb-type UFOs in particular. And, yeah, I was hearing that someone somewhere had... like some cultures equated them to actually not as UFOs, not as flying saucers or anything, but the souls of the recently departed, the souls of the people who were killed in that disaster, departing the earth, ascending to heaven or whatever.
Their life energy going away.
Yeah, that is what that is. So, yeah, I think there's probably something in what you're saying there. There's definitely... It is even possible that there are multiple phenomena going on that we lump in together as UFOs or extraterrestrials or UAPs or flying saucers, whatever term you want to use. It could be multiple different phenomena going on. Yeah. It's interesting. Very,
all the same,
very
we can't explain it, but we will try.
Yeah.
Do you know that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, still have an Inquisition? It's not something that's died out, and it's basically one bloke whose job it is, every time someone reports a sighting of the Virgin Mary or a statue,
a miracle,
a miracle, it's his job to travel out there and investigate it. And I'm sure there's there could be a great movie about this guy. He's just got back from somewhere in the backwoods of the Philippines investigating a sighting of the Virgin Mary, and he's hardly unpacked his bags before the phone rings. And we need you to go to Brazil, to the upper reaches of the Amazon. We've got a crucifix that started bleeding. Yeah, we need you to check it out.
Well, you had a movie, I think, quite recently where Russell Crowe played the last exorcist for the Vatican. I'm sure that was a recent movie. Last couple of years or something.
Exorcism is part of a Catholic church service, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I don't think... Well, it's certainly a particular ceremony, a particular ritual.
I remember going to... Well, I remember going to
part of standard. You don't get exercised every time you go to church.
I remember going to a Catholic christening, and the priest, is Irish priest, is always no. It's time for the exorcism. And for those of you who are not Catholics, it's nothing to do with that stupid film, which I think is a very stupid film indeed. And he was the same guy who I bumped into him in the bar late in the pub. And he was stood there with a pint in his hands. There's something. I bet you've never seen a priest with a pint of beer before, have you? I think no, that's a priest who drinks. Yeah, that's a new one on me.
Yeah, Father Jack. Yeah,
but no. So that's how I know that exorcism isn't just necessarily casting out a demon. It's a routine part of it's some kind of blessing.
The way you describe him, though, I'm just... and the money was just resting in my account. Oh, dear me. Well, let's wrap up our day. We've gone way off topic here. But Mothman, then. What do you think Mothman was?
I don't know. Various people claim to have seen this thing. I mean, I know there is a human tendency when someone's seen something for other people to say, "Oh yeah, I saw it too," and of course their description will be the same because they've seen a picture of it. I liked the newspaper headline that followed that sighting. It just says, "Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something." So yeah, they saw something. They believe they saw something. It's certainly, it's sparked. It's put the place on the map. Put Point Pleasant, West Virginia, on the map. It's a big tourist attraction. I don't know. I don't know about cryptids. Can't say they don't exist, but yeah. Any sightings of them, as you say, will be, even though people might believe in them, they will treat any alleged sighting with some scepticism.
I think that's fair. For my part, I'm inclined to think there is some phenomenon, some creature out there. That perhaps has a curiosity about it, maybe not anymore. The fact that we've had similar sightings, like I say, all over the world of similarly described creatures suggests something out there. Whether it's extraterrestrial or not, I don't know. But the Men in Black visitation is a curious element to that.
You can imagine that, if you claim to have seen something paranormal, different people are going to react to it in different ways. Some people, as you say, will be angry, perhaps even violent, and that's a fear reaction.
Mm-hmm.
That's you hear of kids being bullied at school because they claim to have seen something, but the kids who are bullying them are actually frightened. They bully these kids into admitting that they never saw anything, because then they can rest easy, and they will bully mercilessly until they've been told. But yeah, you can imagine someone else, a couple of guys once said, well, let's put on our black suits and black ties and go and visit them, and we'll say we're from the government. We're not going to show you any ID. Take us out to the site, show us it. Yeah, it's just a kind of weird kind of tourism.
Yeah,
I think
it's an interesting one. But there you go.
Yeah.
Why don't we wrap up and let our listeners tell us what they think about?
And we'd especially love to hear from you if you're from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And tell
absolutely.
us. We'd love to hear more about the Mothman.
Or indeed, if you've had a sighting yourself of a similar creature, no matter where you are in the world. But yeah, particularly from Point Pleasant, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us via the usual means. Oh, and this is open to everyone, by the way. We want to hear what everyone thinks. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And if you are one of our Patreon subscribers, you get exclusive access to our Discord server as well. And before we go, I'd like to ask our listeners, please leave us a review wherever you listen to the podcast, because that really, really helps little podcasts like ours to get out there and get more exposure. So, if you can leave us a review, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Join us next time when we will be looking at one from the UK, the Cumberland Spaceman. Quite a famous photograph, that one. So don't miss that. And in the meantime, keep watching the wooded areas, and anywhere you see two glowing red eyes. And of course, and especially, keep watching the skies.
And keep your dog under control as well. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Falls.
Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.